I'm Sean Aylmer, and this is a Fear and Greed extended interview. All the other good bits we couldn't fit into the daily podcast. If you're looking for the daily episode of Fear and Greed, check the podcast playlist. Otherwise, enjoy the interview. Never waste a crisis, the saying goes. It's probably true, but it's sometimes hard to be creative enough to take advantage of opportunities that emerge from a downturn, particularly when you're trying to run your business. This morning, we're talking to an expert in the field of creative thinking and innovative strategies, particularly in digital brand sales, marketing and brand loyalty. Anthony James, universally known as AJ, has worked with IBM, CSC and Fujitsu as a graphic artist, animator and creative director. He's now the Group CEO, Innovation and Growth at Trinity Consulting Services. Morning, AJ.
Good morning, Sean. Good to be with you.
Is it true you've just hit 1 million LinkedIn followers?
Yes, just the other day, in fact.
Wow. Congratulations. That must put you at the very top of the tree, I'd imagine, in Australia in terms of LinkedIn followers.
Number two, in fact. Number two as far as LinkedIn followers, but probably, not wanting to toot my own LinkedIn horn, but probably the most engaged. So it's some of the highest levels of engagement and some nice recognition from LinkedIn as well.
Fantastic. So tell me, how did you get there? Tell us about your career first.
My career is pretty wide and varied. So per your introduction, I spent 19 odd years in the big global corporate machine of the IT industry. But I'd come in sort of with a very different mindset. School for me wasn't, I was certainly no academic. I got into sort of the creative side of my career, tapped into that very quickly, and I sort of started my working life as a graphic designer in the film and television industry, realizing very quickly that there wasn't a lot of money to be made there. I was accepted as a cadet at IBM and spent close to 10 years with IBM before sort of making the rounds of IBM, CSC and Fujitsu. But I was very much a fish out of water with those organizations. I was always seen as a little bit of a rule breaker. I remember famously at Fujitsu Consulting being, one of the old stoic management consulting groups where I took my team aside and we came in one weekend and we painted our entire office red because, yes, it was the corporate color. And yes, I was responsible for marketing, but it really wasn't the done thing. So there was quite a bit of rule breaking, but at the same time, some really innovative breakthrough solutions and ideas that we came up with for some of our clients. I was lucky enough at IBM to work on a couple of Olympics projects where we sort of introduced things that everybody's quite used to today, like, real-time streaming of video on websites. But, back when we're talking around, the late 90s, early 2000s, that was pretty unique and it was pretty out there as far as some of the development work we were doing.
Yeah, now tell me, can you be innovative and follow the rules? Or is it easier to be innovative and break the rules?
Look, it's a great question. And I think any innovation does require some rule breaking. But I would say it this way, it requires breaking the rules within the framework, because it's where too many disruptive innovations actually never take off because they break the rules so significantly. And those rules can be corporate rules, they can be governance rules, they can be rules that consumers, your clients, work within and have as far as the expectation of your service. And if you break those rules, it's never going to work. So you need to have, I have a saying within my team and actually some of my clients now use, which is flexibility within the framework. You need to be flexible with your thinking. You need to be flexible with your ideas and the creative strategies that you come up with, but it's still got to be within that framework that we're used to working within.
So is there an environment where innovation comes to the fore better than other environments? Are there parameters around it?
I used to wonder about that, but I think I've reached the conclusion, I won't disclose how old I am, but I've reached the conclusion after my years of work that there really isn't. Innovation can be applied in absolutely any area, any activity, any industry that you can think about. I think about joining when I left the corporate world and left that machine. I was headhunted into the largest toy and promotions agency on the planet. I think you've probably heard of a little thing called a Happy Meal.
Yep.
And what comes with a Happy Meal is a toy. And I've all of a sudden found myself as Global Chief Creative Officer, responsible for 3.3 billion Happy Meal toys every year.
So you're to blame. The things that are all over my house, or they were, they're not so much, my kids are older, those toys they still turn up somewhere.
The Happy Meal toys will turn up somewhere. And it's quite a phenomenal Australian story, probably the subject for another podcast of yours, that most people don't realise that the agency that started that was in Sydney. But, finding myself sort of responsible for such a big global account, but it was focused on kids and it was focused on toys. But even there, we found innovation. We found ways to innovate and bring something as simple as a humble toy, if you like, that kids desperately wanted, but integrating it into consumers' lives. So, for instance, we took Happy Meals online. So my team innovated the concept of happymeal.com. We built a major, which still is running today, by the way, but a fairly significant consumer engagement platform that allowed kids and families to connect through the use of collecting the Happy Meal toy and then building digital games and activities and download gaming sheets which the families could use on the weekends to come together and get outside and have that active, healthy lifestyle, all through the use of a Happy Meal toy. So I don't think there's any particular one area where innovation doesn't apply. It comes down to your creative thinking and not having those boundaries around your thinking.
I'm sure many businesses wish they were more innovative. There'd be hundreds of thousands of small businesses that know they have to innovate, but just don't know how to take that first step.
It is very interesting. And actually, this is what I write a lot about on LinkedIn. I have many, many articles on the subject. And it's sad but true. And it is a fact that, unfortunately, so many organizations claim innovation holds the key to their future success, holds the keys to their future growth. Unfortunately, in most cases, innovation ends up being a poster on the wall and an award that they enter into saying we're the most innovative company. But in the majority of instances with clients I've worked with, it's predominantly lip service to that style of thinking. And it's sad, but there are ways to break through. And there's an interesting checklist that I work with, and I won't obviously go through it here because I'm sure your listeners don't have all the time. But there's an interesting checklist that I think I work through with a lot of clients in design thinking workshops, in creative brainstorming workshops, the typical things that we've done, but at bringing large degrees of creativity into those workshops to really break their style of thinking, their mode of thinking, believing that innovations and ideas have to be successful from the outset. They can really only come from one person or a team of people that's the innovation committee. My style and the consulting that we do to clients is actually allowing that to flourish within the entire organization, whether it's from the bottom up, top down, but at some point there is that breakthrough idea. And in fact, most of the breakthrough ideas are the simplest of the simple. They're not innovative, big, massive, disruptive ideas. It's actually the simple ideas that tend to get the best breakthrough and then the best engagement. And that's where organizations find that growth.
So what about in an environment like the COVID-19 pandemic? Is it easier or harder to be innovative?
It's certainly an interesting one. I've been asked it a couple of times, and what's been really interesting with this period that we're going through is most clients that I'm working with have actually escalated their digital transformation strategies. They've moved those timelines up. Projects that were 12 and 18 months away on their roadmap, they actually want now. And what they've, not only do they want them now, they want them delivered to their clients tomorrow. And it would have been better if it was last week as well. What it's highlighted to a lot of them is the way that they've been working and the way that they've been operating. They now can't afford to spend weeks and weeks in brainstorming activities, in design workshops, in sign-offs, in documentation. It's all now the reality of the innovation space and being, again, agile and lean in the way that you do things is actually becoming reality for so many of these organizations. And quite frankly, they're struggling. They're struggling with understanding that actually we don't need 20 meetings before we actually decide we're going to get started. It's about getting started, getting that MVP type product up quickly, launching it potentially even with a couple of clients, enhancing and moving forward that way. And it's those clients that that I'm working with that have that style of thinking. They still struggle, and it's still difficult not to have the 600-page white paper and all the documentation that goes around it. But launching those products and getting them out there quickly is they're the ones that are going to come out of this pandemic with actually enhanced balance sheets, enhanced customer engagement, and actually stronger businesses rather than the opposite.
You mentioned MVP, which is minimum viable product, that whole concept that you get a product to a point where it's good enough and then you build on it over subsequent months and quarters to improve it and kind of get it to the point where you really want it to be. But that idea of actually just getting something to market first, that's good enough, if not perfect.
Absolutely. You couldn't have summarized it any better. You can launch these products, and today with the tools that are available, and this is the other big eye-opening thing that I do for a lot of my clients, is open their eyes to the tools that are actually available. We started with LinkedIn at the beginning of our discussion.
So how do you get 1 million LinkedIn followers then? I mean, it's a really good point.
Look, it's potentially another podcast. I've got some tips, which I'm happy to share with you and your listeners as well. The one thing to remember with LinkedIn, it's a grind. It's not social media like you know it. It's not Instagram. It's not Facebook, even though some people would claim that it's becoming a lot more like that. LinkedIn is hard work. It is about consistency. So it's about consistently posting. There are 2 million posts going into the LinkedIn feed every single day. If you want to be seen, if you want to get noticed, you need to be consistent in your posting. If you're posting once or twice a week, being seen, the likelihood of being seen is fairly remote. The other big one is around engagement, and it's actually actively participating in some of the discussions, responding to comments, engaging in meaningful interactions on people's posts. And the last simple tip, and I guess these are all pretty common sense, it's what do you want to be known for? I look at people's feeds and it's full of absolutely everything. I don't know what their brand story is. I don't know what they stand for. I think if you look at my feed, you could say pretty quickly it's about innovative, new ideas. It's about new technology ideas, and it's sort of all wrapped around the creativity. So it's sticking to your knitting and putting out there what you want to be known for.
Have you seen lots of new good ideas in that evolving as people have become more desperate as a result of COVID-19?
Look, I wouldn't say it's a matter of desperation. Part of what I do is, in order to bring great innovation and creative thinking to clients, I think you have to cast your net very, very wide. And my net is probably on some days far wider than it should be, which means you don't get much sleep because I consume vast amounts of content, and I've become good over the years at sifting through that and saying, actually, I've never seen that before. That's really interesting. And my simple approach is, if it's interesting to me, it's got to be interesting to my followers on LinkedIn as well. And if it's not, it's not. If it is, then those posts tend to go very, very well. So I think with technology and creative thinking, those ideas are vast. There's so many amazingly good ideas out there. It's bringing them to market, and it's actually commercializing them, where a lot of these organizations and individuals actually fail. And that's where a consulting group like mine come in, because we can actually not only help you bring the idea to reality through an MVP, through getting it out there, we also take established ideas and help sort of commercialize them on a global basis through our network and platforms like LinkedIn.
Jay, this has been a great conversation. We've run out of time, but we're going to have to ask you back now, that regularly, to dip into some of this stuff, because it is really useful information for businesses out there trying to build, trying to think differently. What you've discussed this morning has been fantastic. So thank you for joining Fear and Greed.
Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to being back with you again.
That was Anthony James, much better known as AJ, the Group CEO of Innovation and Growth at Trinity Consulting Services, and a man with a huge LinkedIn following.